Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei married with Lumine part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. The girl knelt in the rain, despondent about the world. The despair she felt held more weight than the dripping rain droplets on her body. Either she croaked out. The pain was her scar, the fresh scar was for all to see. An unfamiliar land, an unknown world. Between the dimensions she lost the only partner she knew of. Are you okay? An unfamiliar language further hammered her broken heart that she was in an unfamiliar territory. She turned to the source of the voice. A boy with short spiky brown hair, with two short locks of hair behind his head and light brown eyes. He extended his only free hand out with a look of concern on his face. From the words he told, the tone of his voice, his facial expression and current action, the girl deduced he was asking him if she was okay or something similar to it. Unable to trust her words and desperate for warmth, she reached out to the hand and held it tight. A slight wince appeared on the boy's face, but the girl didn't particularly care for now. The boy pulled her under his umbrella, keeping her from the rain. Without a word, the boy pushed the umbrella handle into her free hand. Understanding his intention, she held onto it to keep both of them from the rain. He took off his thin coat, a blazer, later she learned, and wrapped around her before taking the umbrella back. Both of them walked, perhaps to the boy's place of residence. She didn't know, nor she didn't care. If her fate was doomed from the start, so be it. No other fate than death was worse than losing her powers and brother. The walk was silent, the sound of their feet stepping on the wet road and raindrops accompanying them. It was all a blur to the girl, only distinctly remembering reaching home, hearing the unfamiliar language being spoken between the boy and, perhaps, his mother before being pulled to an odd room where she washed off the dirt on her body. When she became aware once more, she saw a bowl of noodles in front of her. The distinct smell and texture was something she must have encountered before, but the memory of it was hazy. You're hungry, eat it. Again with the unfamiliar language, this time by the older woman who gave her a small smile. Without a second thought, the girl took up the chopsticks and ate the noodles. The loud slurping noise she made could be rude in her culture, but the girl cared none of it. Her body wishes for food, so she'll provide it. While eating, the boy returned from somewhere and spoke to the older woman. On his hands held a pair of white flowers and feathers. He turned to the girl and held out the item in his hands to her. She took the items back, feeling it to be slightly cold and wet to her touch. Knowing she couldn't wear her brother's gifts yet, she merely bowed to the boy in gratitude. The panicking tone of the boy and the woman implied they couldn't accept her thanks. Finishing the food, the girl merely sat on the sofa, stirring in her own depressed mind to contemplate her next course of action. Without her power, she couldn't defend herself from threats that could not be solved with a sword. Without her power, she could not travel between worlds. Without knowledge of this unknown world, she would be easily lost and forced to survive in the wild. Without either, she felt tears well up in her eyes, and her emotions became a storm. Her heart beat against her chest and her stomach tied into a painful knot. Her attempts to give herself some semblance of control failed miserably. She could hear herself cry softly in despair as the recent pain surfaced once more. I'm sorry. Something wrapped around her, trying to comfort her. But no warmth and comfort would patch the wound she held. Even so, she could appreciate the shoulder she could cry on. She needed time. She needed to learn new things in this world while searching for either. Lumine swore to her fellow gods that she shall never leave this world before reuniting with her brother. Issei was just on his first day of high school when he found the girl. It was interesting, really. He joined Kuo High because he desired to make a harem there, wishing it would be like an anime. Boy, did it look like it'll be going in that direction with a beautiful girl he found to be a sign of good things to come. Despite clearly being in despair, he could tell she was a beauty unlike others. Her white dress and pale skin gave her an air of purity like a goddess. Golden eyes that looked like it truly was made of gold itself. The smooth blonde hair she had, which was adorned with flowers and feathers, gave her a divine air. If the situation didn't call for his concern, he would have admired the girl as his waifu. Unfortunately, he must look after the girl. From the way she acted, a tragedy must have struck. It involved someone called Either from what she mumbled in her sadness-induced sleep. The way she took a moment to think about his and his mother's words before replying with a gesture implied she was a foreigner. An European perhaps. Shit, does it mean he needs to look up all the languages in the European region? The concern for tomorrow's essay. For now, he has to carry the girl to the guest room. She was heavier than he thought, but still light enough for him to carry her. Light as a feather, delicate like a flower. She was a goddess to him. He carefully tucked her into the guest room bed before leaving the room, allowing the girl to rest. Hopefully she will have a good night's sleep. She's in the room now, Mom. Issei informed his mother, Miki Hyodo. The middle-aged woman smiles in relief at the young girl. She does not know the full story of the young girl, but her bleeding heart told her to keep her safe. Just as soon as her son told her he was going back to his room, she stopped him. "You did nothing to her, did you?" He flinched at his mother's suspicion. To him, it was an insult to the highest order. Despite being warranted for it, he doesn't like the tone his mother used. "Why would I even stand that low, Mom?" The boy spoke in an annoyed tone. She needs help right now. Realizing her mistake, she apologizes to her son before allowing him to return to his room. Issei entered his room with his mood not uplifted. Not even the gravure posters of various women he masturbated to help him. Not that he intended to do so anyway. A girl was sleeping in their guest room after what seemed to be a tragedy, and he was here doing something dirty. Unacceptable. Contrary to many people, Issei was capable of empathy. But now he had some stirred emotions inside him. Emotions that are usually dealt with by doing his activities. However, now is not the time. The boy rummaged through his desk cabinet until he had gotten an old notebook. "Been a while since I did this," he muttered to himself, wondering what stopped him. Mentally shrugging off the question, he took out a mechanical pencil and flipped through the notebook. He hovered his pencil over a blank page, hesitation clear as his hand felt heavy. "Let's do this." He took a deep breath and started writing on the blank page. His being fell into a trance as he poured his thoughts and feelings into words. The hair that is soft as silk, skin as beautiful as Snow White, as light as feathers, the body, well petite, looks perfect. Is she a goddess? For what tragedy had befallen upon her? Questions unanswered, but I shall answer the cry of help. May her wish be granted. The boy closed the book right as he was done. He felt flustered by what he had written. Without a word, the boy slept early for the evening to let his mind forget about those words. When Lumine became conscious, she felt soft fabrics touch her skin. Warmth enveloped her as she continued to lie down. This was the softest bed she ever slept in. Unlike the beds of her home, which only comprise cottons. If only either can experience this bliss now. Oh right, he's gone. Opening her eyes and getting herself up from the bed, she found herself in an unfamiliar room with a shelf and a desk. There was an odd device on the ceilings too, and it was producing air by spinning its blade. Is this technology in this world? How far has the civilization of this world gone? These questions hammered her with the idea she was lost in every way possible. Before she merely followed either to anywhere they visited. He was her guide, a wayfinder, and her companion. "Oh, you're awake." A boy's voice broke her out of her musing. She turned to him and recognized he was the same boy who helped her. Now she looked at him properly. He was young. Perhaps the same age as she was. And he was wearing a black thin coat over a red shirt alongside a black long pants. Cute too, if I say so myself. Not that he was the first boy she thought about it. Traveling to many worlds brings a series of charming boys for her to admire. "Are you okay?" the boy asked in a curious tone. She looked at his body language, assessed his tone and the pronunciation. Recalling the same words yesterday, she nodded at him. Then she gestured to be sleepy while saying the same word. The boy became confused for a moment. He seemed to have thought about her gesture and words. When a moment of clarity hit him, he looked like he understood. "Are you sleepy?" He did the same gesture again while speaking. He understands quickly, Lumine thought before nodding. "You can go back to sleep." The boy made some gestures and pointed at the bed. Lumine shook her head and got out of the warm bed. Stretching, she let out a satisfied moan and felt the blood flowing. When she turned to the boy, he slightly blushed and seemed to hold himself back from something. Regardless, both of them fell into an awkward silence until there was a distinctly loud sound. The sound of hunger. Lumine became flustered by it, realizing she had become hungry. The one thing she hated the most was her gluttonous behavior. She would still blame it on the appetizing food. "You can come with me to get food." The boy, trying to make the best of the awkward situation, spoke to her once more with some gestures. She analyzed his words, gestures, and body language, but couldn't understand it. She merely frowned and tilted her head, hoping the boy understood her. Realizing what happened, the boy came towards her before hesitating for a moment. Shaking his head, he pulled her along and left the bedroom. Issei was aware of his action. Pulling her to the dining table felt like he was a child leading an adult to somewhere. If anyone else were to see it, there would be an ocean of questions flooding him. Regardless, he was on a mission to sate the hunger of this girl. Turning another corner, he found himself at the dining area with his parents eating their share of food. Said food comprises a simple toast with fried egg and milk. "She's awake now, Mom." He announced it to his mother, presenting the girl to his mother. The girl lightly nodded and raised her hand to greet the parents while speaking the same unfamiliar language. None of them understood her words, but the gesture told them she was greeting them. Looking over at the clock, Issei immediately realized he would be late for school. "Oh crap, I'm late." He immediately gulped a glass of milk and snatched his toast before dashing away, apologizing to his mother and the girl for leaving in a hurry. The girl looked confused before turning to the older woman. Said woman merely sighs and gives her some simple gestures to communicate with her. That boy is late for school. From the gestures to tone, it further confused the girl. Running, time, book. What does it mean? The older man, Goru, understood her confusion and told his wife, maybe we can teach her Japanese. The language barrier is an issue. Goru suggested this to his wife. Without hearing a response, Goru gestured to the girl to sit and have breakfast with him. His wife thought about it for a moment before looking at the lost girl. In her eyes, the girl hesitantly ate the toast. The girl's eyes were squarely looking at the two tenants of the house, seemingly afraid of doing anything that might offend them. Her body language showed she was trying to shrink herself, trying to assess the atmosphere while being careful. The lost girl indeed. The unfamiliarity and the lost expressions told Mickey many things. One of them was that the poor girl needed help. Dear, do we still have Issei's old textbooks? Issei took his time to return to his home, as he needed some time to mull over the current predicament. The cloudy sky didn't deter him from taking his time, as today's forecast said nothing about rain. From the morning interaction, he could tell they could only understand each other through sign language and observing each other's body language. It could become a problem eventually, thus he took it upon himself to help her with the language barrier. First order would teach her the most basic of katakana, hiragana and kanji. Okay, maybe hiragana first, since that was the easiest set of Japanese words to learn. Who would make 3 different sets of Japanese words for them to learn anyway? What sadists do that? Regardless, he already prepared something for the girl. That would be a children's storybook that mostly contained hiragana. He remembered his mother would read a storybook with him to sleep when he was a toddler. The warm scene of a young Issei sitting on the lap of his mother while reading the grand fairy tales of love and bravery. Exhaustion would overtake him eventually and he would sleep soundly. That brought a small smile on his face, but he would not dwell on it longer. Opening his house's door and entering the house, he unconsciously announced his return to all the tenants. "The Karen?" A familiar voice called out. Issei became stunned when he saw it was the girl who said it. There were so many questions in his mind. Despite butchering the words, he could tell she said, "Welcome back." How does she learn it so fast? When did she even learn the words? His mother, Mickey, walked out of the living room who had just removed her glasses. "Why are you standing there, Ice? Mom, did you teach her Japanese? If she did, will his effort be in vain? I was using your old textbooks to teach her." She spoke with a smile. "We started with the picture books I read to you when you were younger." Ah, now he understands. "Well, I bought another picture book from the stores. Is it wasteful for now?" For the first time since Issei doesn't know how long, wow, he truly disappointed his parents. Mickey beamed at his action. "Oh, it will help a lot." The girl merely stood there, confused by the interaction. But from what she could tell, the boy had brought something for his guardian, and she was proud about it. Since that day, Lumine has made many steps forward in learning the new language called Japanese. On the 3rd day since Lumine began learning the new language, she had already grasped the fundamental basics of their noun. The picture books that were used to teach her how to speak were especially helpful as they translated the meaning of each word well. The mother was very helpful too, showing a tremendous amount of patience and care to teach the girl. As of now, Lumine was revising the nouns she had learned in the 3 days. She looked at the words intensely while pointing a finger at each letter. "Adai-ma, nai-san." The mother nodded in approval. "Correct." Lumine strewn over the unrecognizable word for a moment and evaluate the meaning behind it. "Am I correct?" This caused the older woman to be surprised. Lumine didn't mind the shock of how fast she was learning. As a traveler, it was an innate skill she had since birth due to how many worlds she had traveled to. New language and cultures were to be expected, thus having a skill to bypass the barrier as fast as possible was essential. The older woman, unaware of her musing, clapped her hands and said some congratulating words. Lumine understood those words as the mother had spoken them a lot. Really, it reminded her of her mother prior to her journey. The older woman, without hesitation, took another book to continue their lessons. This time, the book has fewer pictures and more words. Lumine was eager to learn, fortunately. On the 6th day, the girl's language skill has graduated from the kindergarten level. To say her skill impressed Issei was an understatement. She had made something that took a few years to learn looked easy, and that was just the beginning. Ever since she graduated from this level, her language skill has been rapidly improving. His mother predicted that she would graduate from the primary level in another week or less. Afterwards was where the true difficulty enters, as she must learn the 3 different versions of Japanese. Issei wished her good luck on that. "Help." Issei broke out of his reflection when he was being called by the girl who was sitting across from him. The day was Sunday, so he had to stay at home. His parents went grocery shopping together on cloudy days to restock the refrigerator. With an additional mouth to feed, the stocks in the storage dwindled faster. Though for the life of him, he wouldn't understand why his parents went out on a cloudy day. Not that it matters anyway, since the entire week has been cloudy. "What is it that you need help with?" He leaned forward as Lumine pointed at a single letter called I. Hadaru. He answered simply before noticing the girl frowned before shaking her head. Ying, G. What? No, it's Hadaru. She shook again. This time she spoke in a full sentence. My name it's Ying, G. Ying, G. Isn't that a Chinese word? Did she come from China or somewhere near there and wrote Hadaru I that way? Deciding to test out a theory, Issei took a piece of paper and pen and wrote the word Lumine has been speaking and presented it to her. This is Ying, G. This is the word you have been talking about. He then pointed at the letter Hadaru I. That is Hadaru in Japanese. Lumine then nodded at his explanation. She assumed there was over one language in this world, judging from what Issei has spoken. Since she was on the topic of names though, I have not introduced myself, did I? She asked the boy. Now he thought about it. He had never learned her name at all and always referred to her as the girl. Well, that changed today and he was excited about it. Not every day he was being introduced by a cute girl herself, anyway. I will start first, then. Issei unconsciously made a grin and showed his bravado. I am Hyodo Issei, 16 years old, and my dream is that Issei faltered in the last part and nearly lost his bravado. As much as he wanted to tell her about the Harem King dream, perhaps it will be a terrible impression on the girl he saved a few days ago. To be a hero. Nice to meet you. Yeah, it sounded childish, but at least he won't learn the ira of the girl. As for Lumine, for as much as she wanted to ask about his hesitation, she knew not to pursue it. It would be unbecoming of a lady like her anyway, not she cared much, but she would like to uphold a certain image. I have many names, but I would tell you 3 of them. In Japanese, it would be Hadaru I. In my mother tongue, I am Ying, G. And in my second language, I am called Lumine. Nice to meet you, Hyodo Issei. That was a lot of names for him. But then again, from what he could tell, her name derived from the word light. How fitting for a glowing girl. You don't have a surname, Hadaru. She shook her head. Only the royalties have the privilege to earn a surname. Now Issei became increasingly intrigued. The way Lumine spoke about her origin, he assumed she must be from a rural place with old ways of teaching. Maybe he could prod for more answers. I see you have never been to Japan before, have you? Again, she shook and she frowned at herself. I did not ask to be here. Why you didn't? Why? Lumine kept her lips tight at that. For as much as she appreciated his family's hospitality, she wouldn't say she trusted the family with her origin. Experience told her that people like them do not hold any ill intent at all, but sometimes she would be wrong and had her power sought after. But then her heart weighed heavily. Issei was the one who saved her in the rain and, as per tradition, she must return a favor that was equal or more in value. If you don't want to talk about it, then I wouldn't force you. Lumine reacted to the boy's unexpectedly gentle voice. She saw his expression, one in disappointment, guilt and pity. The boy was empathetic, huh? No, I want to share a piece of my story to return your favor. Before Issei could interject, she spoke. I was traveling with my older brother, either, or Sora in your language. We were supposed to leave and explore more places. She could feel her heartbeat faster and her breath becoming erratic. However, we are stopped by someone. She told us that our journey was over and flashes of images appeared in her mind. The battle, the fear, the worry and the pain came crashing down on her once more since the first day. A pair of warm hands enveloped her hands, as if it was an attempt to reassure her and keep her calm. It worked somewhat and she could stabilize herself. And she took him away while throwing me aside when I was unconscious. Now I am clueless and looking for my older brother. As she spoke more, she slowly became a sobbing mess and eventually cried. Issei stayed silent as she finished her story. Guilt crept up in his heart as he should have known the scars were still fresh for her. Another feeling, the feeling of anger, also welled up. He felt rage towards whoever kidnapped her brother and dumped her in Japan to survive. Without knowing, he gripped her hand harder and the feeling of resolve came upon him. Lumine, she looked up to him with her sobbing face. I swear to you, I will help you find your brother. I will take care of you for as long as possible until you find your brother. I, Hyodo Issei, will find your brother until the day I die. I can promise you that. She looked at his face, full of righteous fury and his voice so full of resolve. Somewhere in her heart, many feelings came to her. She felt guilty, for the boy had sworn himself to do an endeavor that would end in a dead end if either was not in this world, that the boy decided upon himself that he would carry her burden. At the same time, she felt happy. That the boy who saved her was the one who also helped her like a knight to a maiden, that she could sincerely trust on his words. For the first time in this new world, even if she was still crying her heart out, she smiled in relief. I trust you, Hyodo Issei. If gods exist, I wish the sunlight pierce the gloomy clouds and bless me the strength in my endeavor so I can see her smile once more. It has been 3 weeks since Lumine arrived in Japan and is living in the Hyodo household. At that time, she felt better from the company of the family. They cared for her even during her lowest point, where her depression hit the hardest with nightmares accompanying her. The flames that engulfed Karaya and the screams of the people. Lumine shook her head out of the depressing thought. Right now, she has a new life to live through. Waking up in a familiar room, she stretched her limbs and moaned cutely. As usual, Issei would knock on her door asking if she was awake. Like a memorized script, she replied to him. Afterwards, she would take a quick shower and change into a set of borrowed clothes. Once breakfast was over, it would transition to a normal day in the Hyodo household, where she continued her studies in Japanese. From what she heard from the mother, Lumine had reached the level of Issei's current education. High school level, whatever that meant. Haderu. Lumine looked up to Miki. She had accepted that her name in Japan would be Haderu for now, despite having multiple names. Honestly, she envied either for having different names, but having the same letter. Regardless, no time to muse too long. Yes, ma'am. I'm aware that aside from the clothes you wore since day one, you don't have other clothes, right? Now she thought about it, she has no clothes at all aside from borrowed ones. I don't own any Japan's clothes at all. Aside from borrowed ones. That won't do. Goru, Issei's father, broke his attention from the newspaper and shook his head in disapproval. We need to get you clothes of your own. Miki agreed. We have put this off for a while already. It's about time to bring you to a shopping trip. In a panic state, Lumine quickly denies their plan. Oh, there is no need for it. I can look for old materials and nonsense. You need clothes more than ever. Miki immediately changed her aura to that of a berating mother, but Lumine was having none of it. I can't ask for more. You have provided me with more than enough shelter. Just then, she felt someone place their hand on her shoulder. She turned and it revealed Issei, who gave her an odd smile. Don't bother fighting. You cannot win this. Oh, it is a sad smile of defeat. One that has experienced a battle he lost. She sighed in defeat, resigning to fate and the parents. I'll have to repay them someday. She thought to herself. Lumine examined the new outfit that was given to her by Miki in this shopping trip. She twirled around and looked at the reflection of her new appearance. She kept her hairstyle and flower hairpin, thus nothing changed much. Her new outfit consisted of a white blouse with gold accents and an Arctic blue paneled short skirt. She still wears her white stocking and boots which complemented her current appearance. Lumine, are you done? Miki asked. In response, Lumine revealed herself from the changing room to the Hyodo family. She had a light blush and smiled as the family complimented her, calling her cute. All except Issei, who opted to just stare at her. He merely got out of his stunted mode when his father elbowed his stomach. You look gorgeous. Lumine blushed even harder from that. She had pretty and cute boys compliment her before, but something about Issei's bashfulness and sincerity made her skip a beat. Oh no, did she fall back to what she was in her first love? Goru smacked his son's head while giving the boy a knowing grin. Trying to flirt with her, ice. Issei's face exploded with crimson red and bumbled his reasoning. I'm just trying to be honest. Lumine giggled and, with a mischievous grin, patted him despite being shorter than him. Aw thanks Issei. Issei grumbled slightly, muttering to himself quietly as everyone laughed at him. Alright, we still have more clothes to buy for Lumine. Lumine agreed with the mother and followed her to another part of the section to find more clothing. Goru and Issei followed in a more brisk pace, seemingly wanting to talk about something. You can speak to me, you know, son. Goru opened. Yeah, I know I just need to gather my thoughts actually. Goru hummed in a curious tone. Is this about Haderu? Issei nodded. While Issei tended to display degenerative behavior like being a massive pervert and generally be stupid, the boy does have his moments when being empathetic. This was one of the rare moments where he has thought about others than himself. I just think someday she has to leave. The boy frowned, his heart felt displeasure as the words flowed. Ah, so that is what is happening. You want her to stay. Honestly, if she wants to. I just feel like I don't exactly know how I feel. Are you having a crush on her? That got a blush on the boy, who vigorously shook his head in denial. No. I know I am not having a crush on her. There's someone else. He immediately shut his mouth and took a breath. What I meant was I guess I'm seeing her as someone part of my life like Irie-kun. At the mention of his childhood friend, he frowned in sadness. It has been years since they came in contact. In fact, even with the advent of the internet, he could not find Irina. So, you're scared you can't talk to her anymore? Yeah, that's what I'm scared of. Goru understood his son completely. Ever since Irina and her family left Kuo, Issei had become lonely over time. Sure, his degeneracy might have a hand in demolishing any chances, but he hoped someone would look past that side and see who his son truly was. The kind-hearted honest boy who was just lonely. Well, we can give her a phone later and get both of you connected. Issei looked at his father and gave a small smile. He felt slightly better, but it is a start. Ice, dear, come and see what I picked for Lumine. The father-son pair jogged towards the woman and continued the shopping trip. Lumine hummed to herself as she sorted her new clothes into the guest room's cabinet. The shopping trip itself was quite the experience for her. The clothes and their materials are otherworldly to her. They came in so many forms that she felt slightly overwhelmed, and some of the more recognizable ones were considered traditional or costumes. It seems that just as technology advances, so does the fashion culture. That includes the existence of a new form of underwear, bras. When she found the underwear, Lumine was utterly confused at the existence of such apparel. Sure, she had seen something like a bra which was a doo-doo, but Lumine herself never wore one. The new underwear made her feel comfortable yet restricted. It is an odd feeling, but she would not mind getting used to it. Though it was slightly embarrassing that Mickey taught her what needs to be done whenever she needed to take off her underwear. But there was still the question why Mickey and Goro seemingly glared at Issei, who was acting odd. Probably something like an old embarrassing story in the family. She was not here to pry it. Another culture shock she experienced was the existence of the small device called cell phone. It was such an amazing device to the girl who cannot help but be amazed by everything about it. It functioned like a phone in the Hyodo household, but it also acted like a miniature camera, something she would wish to find out soon. A knock on the door. "Haderu, can I come in?" It was Issei who knocked. "Sure, come in." Issei, in his white shirt and a black shorts, walked into her room nervously with his phone in hand. "So, do you want to test out the calling and texting feature of the phone?" he awkwardly asked. Lumine just gave him a smile and nodded, which made him visibly relaxed, and his face brightened. "Alright, so you and I have to exchange our contact number." And so, during the night the boy and girl spent their time on their cell phones, having some fun with it. The boy had fun teaching the girl how to use the intricate features of a cell phone, while the girl had fun learning. But at the back of Issei's mind, this will serve the purpose of helping Lumine understand the world even more for the day when she must spread her wings and leave the Hyodo family. I hope it will happen when we can leave together. It has been a week since the shopping trip. 4 weeks since her arrival in Japan and living in the Hyodo household. The morning was a peaceful affair for the Hyodo household. Delicious food was served and the mood was generally lighthearted. That was until teenagers just can't break the bad habit of waking up late. "I'm going to be late." Issei's frantic footsteps can be heard throughout the house as the boy leaves his room quickly. He did a quick greeting to Lumine before devouring his breakfast and left the house in a blur. Lumine merely laughed nervously at the antic, finding the boy viewing being late for school was equivalent to a death sentence. When the ordeal was over, Lumine volunteered to wash the dishes. Mickey was, like before, insistent on allowing the woman to do it. However, after much stubbornness and persuasion the woman relented. "If I didn't know better, I would have thought you're my cousin." Lumine smiled at the statement. "Then I would gladly try to be more like her if I earned this praise." With the dishes taken care of, both Mickey and Lumine proceed to do their own tasks. With Mickey doing the chores while Lumine continued her Japanese study. Today, her agenda was Japanese idioms and how they could be used. Oh dear, it looks like Issei did it again. Lumine tore her attention away from her textbook and turned to Mickey. The woman was frowning and holding onto a wrapped lunchbox. "I can't even go to Kuohai to give it to him with my schedule tied up." Lumine, feeling obligated to help Mickey, volunteered in a heartbeat. "And I am curious about Japan schools," she reasoned. "Normally I would just let Issei buy his food in the cafeteria when this happens." Mickey huffed in annoyance at her son's blunder. "And I wouldn't really dare to let you out yet since we haven't gotten the time to give you an identification in Japan." Lumine knew that. Apparently in this world, everyone of a certain age must register to get their own identification so that they can be a legal citizen. Most people have theirs set up after they are born. However, there were those poor cases where the identity was stolen, lost, or never existed since they were not registered when they were a newborn. Lumine never existed in this world, thus it complicates things legally. Regardless, now was not the time to contemplate the law. She was determined to help Mickey for all her hospitality. "Please let me do it, Miss Mickey. Just give me the direction and I am sure it will be delivered." Mickey made a worried expression. On one hand, allowing her to go on her own was a poor idea. The girl looked like she was from the countryside and barely understood the current world. On the other hand, the Hyodo family had caged her in their house out of safety and her unfamiliarity. In the end, she must decide. "Alright," Lumine's expression brightened. "But promise me you will be careful." The girl nodded rigorously. Well, she would trust the girl to be safe. "Why is it that I feel like I forgot something?" Lumine walked through the quiet streets of Kuo, enjoying the cherry blossom-filled streets. The cool, fresh air of spring reinvigorated her soul, and the beauty of the street was nice to look at. She immediately broke out of her trance and hurried to Kuohai. With the direction given by Mickey, the girl easily navigates through the streets. It was mostly thanks to her experience in exploring the unknown that she could navigate the place quickly. When she reached the front entrance of the school, she was in awe at the sight. "Is this even a place of study?" She breathed out the words. To call the place a school would undermine the architecture of such a place. The place looked more like a castle ground with academic flair in it. The white paint and the bricks meshed well together, which made the aesthetic much better. She saw some students come and go in the school grounds with lunch in their hands. It reminded Lumine of her task. Without hesitation, she walked up to the gate, where a guard was there. "Stop, girl. You know you can't enter the ground at this time." Lumine knew that. But Mickey had taught her a trick. She presented the lunchbox to the guard, who merely raised his eyebrow. "I'm here to give a student named Issei Hyodo his lunchbox. He forgot to take it this morning." The guard narrowed his eyes on her. "What's your relationship with that brat?" "Well, that was just mean." Lumine frowned at his attitude at the mention of Issei. "I'm just his housemate, as I have no other places to live." The guard merely sighed and told her to wait for a moment. The guard took a tag for her and opened the gate. "Wear the tag as long as you're in the school grounds. Once you're done with your stuff, just leave." The girl nodded and entered Kuo High. As she traversed the place, she noticed the school consistently had more females than male. Not only that, but the students began talking about her and her appearance. Some assumed she was some Kiba person's little sister. Others assumed she was someone much older than what she appeared. Regardless, she continued to traverse the academy. "This class should be 1B, that would mean first floor and room 2, if I remember, ma'am told me." She thought to herself as she entered the building. She took off her shoes as per instructed and wore a pair of slippers. When she arrived in the classroom, she peered into the room and became disappointed. Issei was nowhere to be found. "Excuse me, are you looking for someone?" Lumine turned around and found a stern, bespectacled girl standing there. She has a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes. "Yes, I am looking for Issei Hyodo," Lumine replied without a hesitation. The moment she uttered that name, everyone became silent and stunted. Even the stern-looking girl looked like she was about to drop jaws. "Hey, are you referring to Issei?" Now Lumine was completely confused. What's everyone's reaction to Issei? "Yes, the one and only Issei Hyodo." "Why did your reaction look like I spoke of a ghost's name? Are you not aware of his reputation?" the stern woman asked. Lumine just shook her head. "Well, allow me to." The stern girl clicked her tongue and turned to Issei. The boy looked silly, with a pale face and bread on his hand. It seemed he went to the cafeteria for food. Lumine's face brightened at the boy's appearance. She walked up to the poor boy, who seemed to be silently mentally breaking down in front of the girl. "Issei, your mother had requested me to bring your lunchbox." She handed the boy the lunchbox with a smile, as if she was oblivious to the world around her. Not that she was, but she chose to ignore it. What the hell? That degenerate got a cute girl to give him a lunchbox. A boy screamed in agony. What has the world come into? Is this Armageddon? And the unknown girl promptly prayed to Samria-sama. Issei nervously smiled and took the lunchbox. Thanks, Lumine. If you want to, I can walk you back to the entrance." Lumine looked around for a moment before shaking her head. "I want to know your school better, Issei. I am curious about a Japanese school." Issei became even more nervous. I could give you a tour when it isn't a school day." Lumine looked around the student body, whisperings were everywhere and some gave Issei stink eyes. Lumine gestured to Issei to get close to her before whispering into his ears. "Don't think I can't tell what is going on. I want to know the truth, Issei, so cut the nervousness and talk to me when we walk." Issei immediately jumped back, seemingly out of fear before grabbing her hand and began walking. "I guess I could try to give her some truth. As long as we avoid Mitsuda and Motohama." It took a while for Issei to find a place for him to hide Lumine from most of the school populace. As of now, they were at the old school building, where there was a lot of foliage. Issei and Lumine sat under a tree awkwardly, as Issei tried to look for words to speak. Lumine wanted to know the truth of his reputation. What was Issei infamous for that made the school call him a degenerate? "I'm okay, I'm gonna tell you everything." Issei nervously began. "I was a pervert in the school." Lumine blinked once, then twice. "You were a pervert?" Issei became surprised by the lack of reaction, but decided to elaborate on it. "I mean, I peep at a woman changing clothes." The girl just blinked more before sighing. "Is that all? Is that what you were notorious for?" "Yeah," he nodded gingerly. "I guess you find me disgusting now." "That's the end of our relationship, I guess." The boy resigned to his fate, despite his heart being twisted in ways he couldn't describe. It was almost like the time he lost Irie-kun. He bit his lip, trying to keep whatever feelings down. He deserved this, he wasn't stupid enough not to realize this. "You are not the first pervert I have seen." A small hope grew in his heart. "And you are not the worst one." The hope grew. "I mean, you are not the first pervert who wants to be a hero." And it all crashed down. He realized that she still thought of his old dead, silly dream. He felt guilty for hiding his true dream, and yet he felt it would be better off a kept secret. Well, I guess old heroes are as much of a pervert as some of us do." Issei nervously lied. Lumine giggled at him, thinking that he was feeling relieved that his little secret didn't bother her too much. With a new peace established, Issei began to prepare to eat. "Issei, you ass. Where were you? A voice angrily called out. Issei became pale as he knew the voice. It was Mitsuda. You're taking your time with some cute girl, another one, this one is Motohama. Appearing in front of the pair are two boys. One of the boys is bald, while another one has a pair of glasses. The two boys looked betrayed and miffed, glaring at Issei. Hey guys. Issei carefully placed away the lunchbox, preparing whatever was incoming. Okay asshole, Mitsuda leaned in with aggression, which was quickly responded by Lumine who blocked him with her arm. Right anyway, were you trying to score a date with this girl? What? No. Issei denied. She's just giving me my lunchbox. Made by her? Motohama interrogated, though Issei could tell of the tiny jealousy in him. This time Issei was deadpanned and said it was his mother who made it. Okay then, so if that is the case why didn't you come with us too? Issei jumped and shut Mitsuda's mouth, hoping it didn't create a worse situation. The other boy struggled to pry his hands away. Issei? Lumine, completely confused by his behavior, just tilted her head. Meanwhile, Motohama looked at her and went back to the antic before giving a knowing smile. Ooh, I see, you're trying to impress her, didn't you? She wanted to talk to me in private. A poor choice of words on Issei's part. By private you mean trying to get her to become your first harem? Issei released Mitsuda and quickly shut Motohama's mouth. Both of you shut up before I got killed. Issei sneered in panic. Issei, what does he mean harem? Lumine asked, this time her eyes were narrowed. The girl had a gut feeling about what was happening this time. From Issei's behavior, he had hidden something more. And nothing. It's just first week antics. Issei quickly darted his eyes towards the boy who didn't have his mouth shut. He immediately noticed Mitsuda was about to speak and was going to jump on him. He was too late when Mitsuda dodged and spoke with a malicious grin. He is trying to become the harem king. Silence, the atmosphere became truly thick. Issei Lumine, who had her bangs covering her eyes, turned to the boy. I am not angry. Issei knew she was lying, so did she. But he would let her speak. But I am severely disappointed. But those words said, she stood up and left the boys alone, letting the downer atmosphere heavily weigh them. Issei merely packed up his lunchbox and left the place silently. His friends looked at each other with worried faces, realizing their blunder. If the boy turned towards the old school buildings. Thanks for watching this video. Part 1 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.